It was just dinner, my husband's old friend, a bottle of wine, and a long-forgotten version of myself that suddenly came alive again. I didn't plan on feeling anything that night, but when James looked at me across the table, something in me shifted. And in that moment, I remembered what it felt like to be seen. Welcome back to the channel, where real people share the stories they never thought they'd say out loud. If you've ever lived through the slow fade of connection or felt a stranger awaken something buried deep inside you, this one might feel a little too real. Have you ever looked at someone and felt like they saw straight through your soul? Is it still cheating if nothing physical happened, but everything emotional did? Would you tell your partner or carry that moment with you forever in silence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This space is safe, and you're not alone in the questions you carry. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Every week, we bring you quiet confessions, complicated emotions, and true infidelity stories that stay with you long after the video ends. On a Thursday evening, the atmosphere was imbued with the gentle fragrance of lilacs and freshly mowed grass, creating a serene spring night where time appeared to pause, allowing one to take a moment to breathe deeply. In the kitchen, clad in my apron, I hummed gently to a tune drifting from the radio while stirring a pot filled with my husband's beloved stew. Nothing unusual, merely a standard evening meal at home in our snug, somewhat worn abode nestled in the suburbs. In the living room, my husband, Michael, was engrossed in the game, his voice fluctuating with the tides of frustration and delight, a reflection of the team's performance. It was one of those easy days shared between us, the sort that slips by unnoticed, yet leaves a lingering void in its absence. At that moment, the doorbell chimed. I wiped my hands on the apron, casting a quick glance at Michael. Did you anticipate the arrival of another? He scowled, silencing the television. I was not. I approached the front door, curiosity peaking within me, and swung it open to reveal a tall man in his early 60s, his expression marked by a sheepish smile. He donned a weathered leather jacket, a bottle of red wine cradled in one hand, while a small duffel bag swung from the other. Though his hair had turned predominantly gray, a spark of youthful mischief lingered in his expression. Greetings, Mike, he remarked with a friendly smile. It has been quite a while. As he approached, a spark of recognition ignited on Michael's face. Absolutely not, James. James Stanton. With a soft chuckle, he stepped forward, enveloping her in a warm embrace. James was an old college friend of Michael's, and he served as the best man at our wedding, in fact. It had been over 2 decades since our paths last crossed. The last I knew, he had relocated to Oregon, launched a business, gone through a divorce, and then seemingly faded away from our lives. Michael gave him a hearty clap on the back, a gesture steeped in their familiar bond. What brings you here, my friend? James offered a casual shrug, a smile playing on his lips. I happened to be nearby and thought I would pay a visit. I understand this may come as a surprise. I trust this request isn't too burdensome. Not in the slightest, I replied, presenting a warm smile. You've arrived just in time for dinner. I ended up preparing more than necessary after all. James entered, absorbing the house as if it were a long-forgotten memory waiting to be unearthed after years of neglect. Yet beneath the veneer of humor and charm, there lingered a subtle heaviness within him. A weariness hung in his gaze. I haven't inquired, not at this moment. We gathered around the venerable oak dining table, the 3 of us engaged in conversation and laughter as if no time had slipped away. James recounted outrageous tales from our college years, some familiar, others new to my ears, as we all savored our wine, feeling as if we had returned to our 30s once more. Yet, I observed a distinct change. James observed me more than I anticipated, not in an inappropriate manner, but with a certain softness, a hint of curiosity in his gaze. Initially, I attributed it to a sense of nostalgia. I had always shared a good rapport with him, even in those earlier days. Yet, there was an intensity in his gaze that lingered, evoking a sense of being truly seen, as if he were not merely recalling the woman I once was, but recognizing the person I had become. After dinner, Michael stepped away to engage in an extended phone conversation with one of his brothers. In the living room, James and I found ourselves enveloped in the warm glow of the lamp, its light stretching out to create elongated shadows that danced across the hardwood floor. I filled our glasses once more with the rich, velvety wine. "You know," James remarked, swirling his glass gently, "you haven't changed much." A gentle laugh escaped my lips. "Your vision may require some attention. Each morning, the mirror reveals a different truth to me." "I don't mean your face," he remarked. "Your presence is what I mean. The light within you remains ever bright." His voice carried a gentle sincerity. I found myself at a loss for words. Heat surged within me, not from the wine, but from the way he uttered those words. Raw, candid, and strikingly open. "I'm pleased you decided to visit," I finally remarked. "It has been quite a while." "Indeed, it feels rather prolonged." A silence lingered, the sort that often breeds discomfort. Yet with James, it simply felt rich and complete. An unspoken tension lingered in the air between us, poised and expectant. "I needed this," he remarked after a brief pause. "Truthfully, my presence in the area was no mere coincidence. This was my design. Lately, I've found myself adrift, and I wondered if returning to something familiar might provide solace." I studied him intently in that moment. The fatigue in his gaze transcended mere travel. It was existence, the sort of erosion that seeps into your spirit after enduring more than your share of tempests. "You're always welcome here, James," I said softly. He gazed at me, his eyes growing even softer. "My sincere gratitude. Its significance surpasses your understanding." Just then, Michael re-entered the room, and the fleeting moment slipped away. Yet an undeniable change had occurred. I sensed it deeply, a delicate undercurrent flowing through all things, and I remained blissfully unaware of its destination. Yet I was aware of this. On that night, an unspoken beginning unfurled. Neither an affair nor a betrayal, but rather a profoundly human experience, a reconnection, a reflection revealing aspects of myself long obscured. As I settled into bed that night, nestled beside my husband, who was already lost in slumber, my thoughts drifted to James's eyes, pondering what it was he truly perceived in me. Silence enveloped the dawn of the following day. Michael departed at dawn to assist his cousin with a roofing project, leaving James and me in solitude within the house. It wasn't part of my design. To be honest, it hadn't crossed my mind at all when Michael brought it up the previous night. As I stepped into the kitchen, the sight of James at the table, nursing a cup of coffee in that same wrinkled shirt from yesterday, took me by surprise. "Morning," he said, his gaze lifting to meet mine, a gentle smile gracing his lips. "Morning," I replied, instinctively wrapping my robe closer around me. "Did you sleep well?" He nodded. "Superior to what I've experienced in weeks." "Your couch is surprisingly comfortable," I chuckled softly. "That couch possesses enchanting abilities. It has saved more than a few souls seeking solace." A moment of stillness enveloped us as I filled my cup with coffee. In that instant, I became acutely aware of the house's tranquility. No television, no Michael, only the gentle drone of the refrigerator and the soft clinking of ceramic mugs. James peered through the window, a sense of tranquility enveloping him. It felt as though time had stood still, yet beneath the surface, everything had shifted. I took a sip. That's how life feels in one's 50s, familiar yet oddly foreign. He turned his gaze toward me, the same quiet intensity lingering in his eyes. Have you ever pondered the journey that brought us to this moment? The paths we chose, or perhaps the ones we avoided? I rested against the counter. Occasionally, however, moderation is key. That road can become quite burdensome. James nodded slowly, as if he comprehended all too well. After breakfast, we decided to take a stroll. In a moment of necessity, I found myself needing to make a trip to the market, and James graciously offered to accompany me. The sun shone brightly yet tenderly, its rays weaving through the trees, carrying the soft warmth of late morning that whispers of summer's approach. We meandered along the extended route through the park, gliding past the tranquil pond and the venerable oak trees. The tranquility enveloped the surroundings, rendering small talk unnecessary. I nearly picked up the phone to call you once, James remarked as we arrived at a bench and settled in. It was years ago, right after my divorce. I picked up the phone and dialed the number, yet I found myself hanging up before the call connected. Why didn't you call? I inquired, a sense of genuine curiosity lacing my words. He merely shrugged. I suppose I wasn't quite sure what I was seeking, and I didn't want to complicate things. Complicated. I glanced over at him. James, I'm not someone you need to shield from your chaos. We all carry our own burdens. He let out a soft chuckle. I understand. You have always been a guiding light in my life. Even in our youth, you radiated warmth and kindness. It stirred within me the possibility of becoming a better version of myself. His voice trembled slightly as he spoke, catching me by surprise. I found myself at a loss for words. A part of me yearned to offer him solace, much like one would for a dear friend navigating a difficult moment. Yet, a different part of me, one that had lain dormant for years, yearned to embrace the connection blossoming between us. I extended my hand and brushed against his, if only for a fleeting moment. It was a reflex, not a deliberate choice. Yet, he regarded me as if that simple act held profound significance. James, I spoke softly, you need not bear this burden by yourself. He met my eyes for a fleeting moment. Neither do you. That lingered in my mind. We strolled home in quietude, our fingers grazing occasionally, yet the unspoken lingered between us. Upon reaching the house, I prepared lunch, and we donned our usual masks, exchanging laughter and tales, deftly sidestepping the weight of the morning's events. When Michael arrived later that day, James effortlessly transitioned back into his familiar camaraderie. He was boisterous, humorous, tossing around quips about the football team and teasing Michael about his receding hairline. It felt effortless once more. On the surface, yet beneath that facade, a change had occurred. After James had retired for the night, settling onto the couch with the extra pillow I had provided, I found myself at the sink, scrubbing the final remnants of the meal away. Michael had already succumbed to slumber, weary from the day's toils. The window above the sink stood ajar, inviting the cool night air inside. I felt the gentle caress of the breeze against my skin and allowed my eyes to flutter shut for a fleeting moment. All that occupied my mind was the way James had gazed at me, not as a figure from his past, but as a person he still yearned to comprehend. It wasn't love. Not yet. It wasn't even romance, yet it was something more. Authentic, evocative, surprising. It sparked a contemplation of all the emotions I might have neglected over the years. The following day bore a weight, as if the very air within the house had thickened with unspoken words. James lingered for breakfast once more. He maintained his usual politeness, helpfulness, and charm. Yet, beneath the surface, there lingered a quietness, a certain distance that set him apart. It was as if he was making an effort to conceal something beneath the surface. I understood precisely what it was, for I was engaged in the same struggle. Michael had a golf game scheduled with his friend Paul and departed immediately after breakfast. He pressed his lips to my cheek and gave James a wave, vowing to return by dinner. In an instant, we found ourselves alone once more. James extended a hand, offering to assist me with the cleanup. In the kitchen, we navigated around one another with a hushed tension, filling the dishwasher, wiping down the counters, all the while feigning ignorance of the turmoil simmering just below the surface. "I should probably head out today," he finally remarked, drying his hands. "I've already imposed long enough." I glanced over at him. "You're not intimidating, James." He offered a half smile, yet it failed to illuminate his eyes. Yet I find myself reluctant to linger too long. I propped myself against the counter, observing him intently for what felt like an eternity. "Are you departing out of desire, or is it fear of remaining that drives you away?" That question brought him to a halt. He locked eyes with me, and in that fleeting instant, all was laid bare, unvarnished, genuine, and vulnerable. "I don't want to stir up any trouble," he finally admitted. "You haven't," I replied. "Not yet." He chuckled gently. That single word conveys it all. I ought to have turned away. I ought to have shifted the conversation, allowed it to fade. Yet there was a force within me, a voice I hadn't heeded in ages, that relentlessly urged me forward. "You're not alone in your feelings." I spoke softly, a sense of confusion enveloping me. I find myself at a loss, unsure of what this is or what it signifies. Yet I sense it as well. He moved nearer, deliberately, as if anticipating my command to halt. I remained silent. "I often ponder how different life might have unfolded," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "If circumstances had shifted, if I had spoken up long ago." "And what would you have said?" I inquired. He hesitated, then murmured, "That I always harbored feelings for you, even when it was inappropriate." The words settled heavily, akin to a stone cast into a tranquil lake. An eerie silence enveloped the room. The sole sound was the rhythmic ticking of the ancient wall clock, each tick resonating like a pulse. Then he extended his hand. His fingers grazed against mine. It was merely a fleeting contact. Nothing more. Yet I remained steadfast. I allowed it to unfold. I allowed it to linger between us, a silent question we dared not voice. "I don't want to hurt Michael," I confessed, my voice quivering ever so slightly. "Neither do I," he replied. We lingered in that moment, suspended between right and wrong, past and present, memory and desire. Yet we chose not to venture further. We held our ground. Instead, James withdrew. "You're a good woman," he said, his voice strained. "Better than I deserve to be near at this moment." He seized his coat, draping it over his shoulder. "I'll pack up," he murmured, his gaze avoiding mine. "I will have departed before Michael arrives." I did not intervene. I merely stood there, heart racing, eyes brimming with tears, contemplating how something could evoke such fullness and yet feel so hollow simultaneously. An hour later, the front door clicked softly shut. In an instant, James had vanished. When Michael returned home, he whistled cheerfully, placing his golf bag beside the door. Did James leave? I nodded, my back still to him as I stirred the stew. Yeah, he mentioned he needed to hit the road. He left a note behind. Michael approached and pressed a gentle kiss to my temple, his arm encircling my waist. He's a good man, always has been. I mustered a smile and leaned closer to him. Yeah, I whispered, he truly is. Yet, in the stillness that ensued, I sensed a profound change within me. It was neither guilt nor regret. It struck me with a sudden intensity, the awareness that fragments of my essence had slipped away. I had lost touch with the sensation of being truly seen, of being comprehended, to sense a flicker within that transcended the mundane and the obligatory, yet embodied a profound connection. And I found myself at a loss, uncertain of how to navigate that feeling. Not just yet. Time slipped away. James remained silent. No calls, no letters, and I refrained from reaching out as well. Life resumed its familiar cadence. Serene breakfasts, the evening news with Michael, conversations with the kids, folding laundry, tending to the plants, the sort of mundane that offers a sense of solace from the surface, yet reveals an unsettling emptiness when one tunes in too intently to their own musings. Yet something had shifted. Not within the confines of my marriage. Michael remained unchanged. Reliable, gentle, and compassionate. A man who had shared decades of companionship, crafted a life alongside me from the ground up, and navigated our toughest times with remarkable poise. I loved him. That was never in doubt. Yet, the experience of love and the sensation of truly living alongside someone often diverged. It was a truth I had long kept buried, only to resurface when James re-entered our lives for that fleeting moment. He made no attempt to seduce me. He simply didn't try. He simply looked at me, truly looked, and brought to light a part of myself I had unknowingly allowed to fade. That moment lingered in my mind. One evening, roughly a month after James's departure, I found myself on the back porch, alone, cocooned in a sweater, cradling a cup of tea. The garden lay in serene silence, the moon draping gentle shadows over the grass. Inside, Michael immersed himself in a documentary. The windows illuminated the space with warm yellow rectangles of light, creating a cozy contrast to the night outside. In the stillness of the kitchen, I found my thoughts drifting to that moment. The palpable tension hung in the air, charged with an unspoken energy. The way James uttered my name carried a weight, a significance that transcended mere attraction. It was rooted in acknowledgement. That moment revealed a reflection I hadn't realized I sought. In that image, I beheld a woman still brimming with longing, with wonder. For being stirred, I felt no shame. Instead, I embraced my humanity. Later that night, as I nestled into bed beside Michael, I gazed at him. He was already succumbing to slumber, his features softened by the passage of time and the comfort of our shared moments. "Hey," I whispered. He stirred. "I've been thinking," I said. "I want us to go somewhere. Just the two of us, perhaps by the coast, or maybe we could venture up to the mountains." He slowly opened his eyes, a flicker of disbelief crossing his face. "Really?" I nodded in affirmation. "Yes, I believe we require a change, a fresh start." He extended his hand towards mine, his fingers radiating warmth and a sense of familiarity. "I'd like that," he murmured. The name James lingered unspoken between us. I never revealed to Michael just how near we were to crossing a boundary, and perhaps I never shall. For that moment transcended infidelity. It was a journey of rediscovery. This rediscovery brought me back to my essence and to this marriage in an unforeseen manner. The following morning, I stumbled upon the small note James had left behind, a note I had overlooked when he departed. I find myself pondering the reasons behind my hesitation. Perhaps it was the fear of the revelations it might hold. There it remained, nestled in the side drawer of the hall table, sandwiched between a forgotten pile of receipts and a solitary spare key. It said, "Thank you for reminding me of my past self and the possibilities that still lie ahead. Cherish your beautiful life. James." I clutched the note for what felt like an eternity, my fingertips gliding over its worn edges. Then, almost instinctively, a smile crept onto my face. In those fleeting days, I had unearthed something precious, neither a man nor a romance, but rather a fragment of my being that I had overlooked for far too long. In rediscovering it, I found my way back to my own existence with gentler eyes and a more expansive heart. Perhaps we are granted only a handful of those moments throughout our lives, those that awaken us, that transform our perspective on the world, those moments that come softly, resembling an old friend appearing at your door, leaving behind more than they take. James had been one of those instances for me, and the remainder was mine to bear onward.